Speaker.
I call Kelvin Davis.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker, e tēnei wiki o te reo Māori e tikana ki a tukuna atu ngā ruarua kupu, hei tīmata tōku huihuinga, engari e tikana ngā kōrero o tātou mātua tūpuna, aha ko heti he paunamu. Nā reira, tēnā koutou i te whare. Mr. Speaker, I've only recently come onto the Select Committee and I missed the bulk of this bill. In fact, I'm quite disappointed that I hear the Select Committee went down to Kaikoura without me, because if anyone knows the reo Māori, Kaikoura means to eat crayfish, and I certainly missed out on that opportunity down there. In fact, it's almost culturally insensitive to invite me onto the Select Committee after a visit to Kaikoura, but maybe for old time's sake we could have another meeting down there, and I'll get my colleague Moana Maki to recommend a good restaurant for us to have our Select Committee hui in. However, Mr. Speaker, this Kaikoura Marine and Coastal Environment, the Kaikoura Marine and Coastal Environment has unique biological features and is of historical, cultural, economic and spiritual significance, and is a thriving tourism industry, as we've heard and as we know through the Kaikoura Whale Watch, that contributes some $134 million to the local economy. Despite these attributes, Kaikoura has very little formal coastal and marine protection, hence the establishment through this bill of a marine reserve, of a whale sanctuary, a New Zealand fur seal sanctuary, 5 customary fisheries areas, an advisory committee and fishing regulations. Mr. Speaker, we need to acknowledge the work of the local community members who came together in 2005 and established themselves as Te Korowai o Te Tai o Marokura, that is Te Korowai, the Kaikoura Coastal Marine Guardians, to provide leadership about the use of and protection of Kaikoura's resources. We've heard that they developed a strategy over 7 years, and they encompassed iwi representatives and local marine industries, tourism operators and environmental groups, and they set out the vision for the area and reached a consensus on the coastal and marine environment and how it should be managed. The Te Korowai, Mr. Speaker, in itself, and I'll just go jump a step here, the bill actually makes use of Ngāi Tahu names as recognition of Ngāi Tahu. And I just want to explain about the name Te Korowai o Te Tai o Marokura. Te Tai o Marokura means the seas or the waters of Marokura. Te Korowai, Mr. Speaker, is a cloak. A korowai is a cloak, and it was often used to lay down over something as an analogy for ownership or protection or guardian over whatever it was laying over. And so Te Korowai o Te Tai o Marokura literally means the cloak of Te Tai o Marokura. Culturally it means to lay the cloak or mantle of Ngāti Kuri, who are the hapu, the iwi of that area, over Te Tai o Marokura, caring for the seas around Kaikoura. And I just want to also make the distinction, Mr. Speaker, that Ngāti Kuri, we're talking about Ngāti Kuri around Kaikoura. There is also Ngāti Kuri up where I come from in Muri Whenua, who are the iwi around Cape Reinga, Te Rerenga Wairua. Mr. Speaker, another Māori name that has been used in this bill is Te Whatakai o Raki Haua. Te Whatakai o Raki Hauia. A whatakai is a raised platform where food was stored on top of it. And making reference to evidence of Morris Manawatu on behalf of Te Runanga o Kaikoura and Te Runanga o Ngāi Tahu, when they submitted to the Canterbury Regional Council, they explained the name of Te Whatakai o Raki Hauia. And they say in their records, Waitaha were the first people to have arrived at Te Waipounamu. Waitaha arrived under the leadership of Rākai Hautu and the Urua Waka at Whakatū, which is Nelson. And they arrived there at about 850 AD. From here, Rākai Hautu led a party inland and down the island, but his son was Raki Hauia. And Raki Hauia led another party in the Urua Waka down the east coast and landed at Kaikoura in the area that we've been talking about, the east coast of the South Island. And along the cliffs at Kaikoura, Rakihoia and his wife Tapuiti were busy gathering food. And men were lowered down the cliffs of that area with flax ropes to secure eggs and young birds from the nest there, and the precipitous seafront had since borne the general name of Te Whatakai a Rakihoia, the lofty storehouses of Rakihoia. This, Mr. Speaker, gives a bit of context around at least one of the names that's mentioned in this bill, and it's also goes back to what I said earlier, that this area has cultural and spiritual significance to the tribes, Ngāti Kuri in particular, down there in Kaikoura. Mr. Speaker, we heard from the Minister about the Hukurangi Trench, and I just want to endorse what he has said about it in terms of the biomass that is in the Hukurangi Trench, which is part of the reserve area. Just taking a report from the NIWA website, and it talks here about the Kaikoura Canyon, which is part of the Hukurangi Trench, and it says New Zealand's Kaikoura Canyon is a biodiversity hotspot containing far more life than seen before at such depths. So this area, the Hukurangi Trench, was surveyed. NIWA took digital photographs in different parts of the canyon at various depths. The photographs were analysed to determine the abundance of large invertebrates and fish, as well as what they call lebenspuren, which are signs of life on or beneath a sediment surface. I hope I pronounced that correctly. There was a digital map of the floor of the Kaikoura Canyon, was generated using bathymetric data, and was collected during the voyage by a multi-beam echo sounder. I'm not sure if many people know what a multi-beam echo sounder is. Certainly not many people have them, one of those in their garage next to the lawnmower, I'm sure. But these data were then used to estimate the total area of the canyon that could be considered to be a biomass hotspot. The analysis of fish abundance was undertaken using information gathered from the photographs and trawls taken during the voyage, as well as the bottom trawl. But what the outcome of this said, Mr. Speaker, is that the Kaikoura Canyon is one of the most productive benthic, which means ocean floor, deep sea habitats yet described, exceeding by 100 times the highest biomass measured for large invertebrate at those particular depths. This productivity may contribute significantly to the surrounding ecosystem, which includes deep commercial fisheries for hoki and orange roughy, which in itself is a reason why this reserve, the Hukurangi Reserve, needs to be, has been created. And I also agree with what Gareth Hughes has said about the shape of the Hukurangi Reserve, Mr. Speaker, and the fact that only less than 2 kilometres of coastline are part of this reserve. I take his point that the shape, the odd shape of the reserve boundaries tends to undo a bit of the good of the boundary. However, Mr. Speaker, we've also heard how the boundary, the GPS coordinates were measured down to 2 decimal places, which sort of gave a bit of error of 10 to 20 metres in terms of any particular position on that boundary, and the Select Committee has changed that so that they measure it down now to 3 decimal places and a margin of error of about 1 metre. Mr. Speaker, there was also just a little issue about slipways in the reserve where people would launch their boats, and we had to make a change because if people launched their boats but there was a rock or a bit of seaweed in the way of launching the boat, they weren't actually allowed to move that rock or that bit of seaweed. And anyone who did so would have broken the law. So it was best decided, instead of putting people in that sort of situation, that we'd just change it so that the slipways were taken out of the reserve area. It only encompasses a very small area of some 20 or so square metres, and thought instead of putting people in the situation where they may be breaking the law by removing rocks or seaweed or debris from the slipway, that they would just take the slipways out of that reserve area. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be part of the Labour Party that is supporting this bill. It's supporting the economic, the cultural, the spiritual well-being of Ngāti Kuri and Ngai Tahu in the Kaikoura area. Kia ora.
I call Andrew Williams.